Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more. The Judicial Branch Supreme Court. But before we get into the video, let's go ahead and remind you got two ways to donate to the channel if you are so inclined to support me. I have a Patreon account, which is a month-to-month monthly donation system, and I have a Coffee account, which can do much the same, but also allows you to make single one-time donations. Links to both will be in the description box below the video. If you are in financial difficulty or donating would put you in financial difficulty, please do not donate. I'd rather you take care of what you need to take care of. This life is made tough enough, even worse, by the idiots that currently run the nation. Take care of what you need to take care of, please. If you are in financial stability, if donating won't hurt you, if you're in good, decent enough shape, and you want to donate, thank you. I do appreciate it. It's me, myself, and I. I do the research, the filming, the editing, the posting, all that good stuff. The one-man band, baby. And I've personally chosen not to do commercials as a personal choice. And I'm not making any money from the actual videos as of yet. So, with all that said, let's jump into this video. Today, we do our introduction to the Edward Douglas White Court. Edward Douglas White had been an associate justice under the Fuller Court. Where are you at? There he is, Edward Douglas White. Serving under the Fuller Court, and after Fuller passed away, while still in office, Edward Douglas White was upgraded and chosen to be the Chief Justice, and it wouldn't be the last time that ever happens. We have a number of justices who that happens with. But he would replace Melville Fuller as the Chief Justice, being given acclamation of confirmation by the Senate, serving altogether 10 years and 151 days, December 19th, 1910 to May 19th, 1921. He was basically chosen by William Howard Taft to be the Chief Justice, which Taft makes a number of Supreme Court choices out of just, I think it's only one term he serves in office. But he does such a masterful job with the courts, because that's kind of Taft's expertise, is the judiciary, the Supreme Court, the federal courts. So, yeah. He himself, after leaving office as president, will become a actual Supreme Court justice. The only president to become Supreme Court justice. Chief Justice, I should say. I don't think there are any that become I know there isn't any others that become Chief Justice, but I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there might have been others that become Justice on the Supreme Court, but William Howard Taft is truly the standout in that position. But before Taft becomes Chief Justice, we have Edward Douglas White. He's got a number of holdovers from the Fuller Court. Charles Evans Hughes is a holdover. Horace Harmon Lurton is a holdover. Let's see. Moody retires slightly before Douglas White takes office as Chief Justice. I think William R. Day, yep, he's a holdover. Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. is a holdover. Joseph McKenna will be a holdover. So yeah, those are the ones that hold over from the Melville Fuller Court to become part of the Edward Douglas White Court. He also adds new associate justices. To fill his old spot as an associate justice, we get Willis Van Devanner. And to fill Moody, because remember, he retires before Douglas White becomes Chief Justice, so he's replaced by Joseph Rucker Lamar. And we get Malin Pitney to replace John Harlan. Where you at, Harlan? Yeah, Harlan was back a ways. John Marshall Harlan, there he is. He's replaced by Pitney, I think we said it was. Yeah, Malin Pitney. Lurton would be replaced by James Clark McReynolds. And Lamar would be replaced by a big name in Supreme Court history, Louis Brandeis. Hughes would be replaced by John Hessian Clark. So those are the members of the Edward Douglas White Supreme Court. We'll also get a look here. Edward Douglas White, Rufus Peckham, Joseph McKenna, Oliver Holmes Jr., Wendell Holmes Jr., William R. Day, William H. Moody, Horace H. Lurton, Charles E. Hughes, Joseph Lamar, Willis Van Devanter, Malin Pitney, James C. McReynolds, Louis Brandeis, John H. Clark. So yeah, another look at that list of names that were on the Edward Douglas White Supreme Court. So he goes from being an associate justice under Fuller to being moved up to become Edward Douglas White, the Chief Justice. Now, as we pointed out, who was it? Moody. Look at when Moody retires, November the 20th, 1910. Whereas Edward Douglas White takes over as Supreme Court Justice December 19th, 1910. I mean, there's a separation of just a month. It makes you wonder if there was some disagreement with White. December 18th, that's Moody, or Edward Douglas White becoming Chief Justice. He dies in office, dies. But yeah. like I said, chosen by William Howard Taft, one of the minds dealing with judicial issues in the history of the nation. So, yeah, he was a former president, but also former Chief Justice. Douglas White Jr. Served as Associate Justice and then become the Chief Justice for a total of 27 years. He is actually descendant of the Lee family. Light Horse Harry Lee, Robert E. Lee, all that. The Lee family has roots in the nation that go back, people don't realize, quite a ways. So, yeah. But he was born in Louisiana, practiced law in New Orleans, graduating from the University of Louisiana, now Tulane College, Tulane University. He was nominated by Grover Cleveland to be Associate Justice, and like we've already specified, by William Howard Taft to be Chief Justice. Would actually serve as United States Senator before being Associate Justice. And he would be a Justice of the Louisiana State Supreme Court. So he clearly has the credentials for the job. Married to Alida Montgomery Kent. Though I don't know if they necessarily had any children, it's not mentioned. He did serve for the Confederacy, reaching the rank of lieutenant with the 9th Louisiana Cavalry Regiment during the American Civil War. Yeah, distantly related to Robert E. Lee, like we said, part of the Lee family. Most people think, oh, the Lees are the early America. There's not much about them. They've got family lines throughout the U.S. So you'd be kind of surprised who may or may not be related. There's a lot of families that have these almost considered royalty family lines in America. The Washingtons, the Lees. Yeah. But with that, we'll go ahead and end this episode here. It's not meant to be a long one, just introducing us to the Edward Douglas White Court in general. And we'll do a full review of Edward Douglas White in the next episode before we start into the new members of the Associate Justices. But with that said, as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources, and it can't be a bunch of tinfoil hat wearing sources or anecdotes thrown together to try to make sources. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.